I don't know if it's a great Nolan Ryan story, but I learned some lessons from Nolan, and one of the ones that's always resonated with me has been his genuine humility. And even after all he accomplished in his career, early in my tenure here with the Rangers back in 2008, Nolan, Jim Sundberg, and myself were going to lunch one day. And you might remember back when it was open, Bodacious Barbecue right down the street here on Division, over by the Candlelight Inn, as a matter of fact. So we decided, let's run down to Bodacious, really laid back. We'll hop in there, have some barbecue and chat over lunch and go about our day. So we get down there, and like everybody else, we go through the line, and when we pulled in, I noticed there were a couple of utility trucks out in the parking lot. And sure enough, as we're going through the line, I see these guys over there having their lunch and everything, and they're doing, their heads are on a swivel. They can't believe that Nolan Ryan's going through the same line that they went through a few minutes earlier. So we get our food and we go over, we sit down at the table, and we're sitting there chatting for a few minutes and enjoying lunch. And these guys were finishing up and get ready to leave. And as you would imagine, right? You have that opportunity, you're that close to Nolan Ryan. These guys stopped over at the table and sort of sheepish about it. They asked him to sign, I don't know what they had, a napkin or whatever. And I think he may have taken a picture with the guys too. And, no big deal, right? They go on about their day. We sit there, finish our meal. We got back in the car, and I looked at Nolan. I said, Nolan, does that ever get tired? I mean, does it ever get old? And he looked at me, he said, you know what, Rob? He said, it's just part of it. And, I thought, wow, it's not not that it's that insightful, but, he just sort of who he was and who he continues to be to this day. I've seen him in other situations with restaurant servers and bellman at hotels and stuff like that. And he's always thoughtful, always goes out of his way to take care of people.
So now, please welcome the official, non-official, non-sponsor of the Savannah Bananas, but a big fan. Please welcome John Fletcher.
Well, thank you, my friend Jesse Cole, owner of the Savannah Bananas, who will be playing in Arlington later this year. And welcome to 15 on Fridays with Fletch. And today's special guest, he is a baseball legend. He has had 41 years in the baseball industry, pro baseball, with the Detroit Tigers, Houston Astros, and now the Texas Rangers for the past 18 years. He oversaw the construction of Globe Life Field, and he's the executive vice president of, try it again. He oversaw the construction of Globe Life Field, and he's the executive vice president of public affairs for the Texas Rangers. He's the chairman of the Arlington, busted again, sorry, let's just pick that right back up there. He oversaw construction of Globe Life Field, and he's the executive vice president of public affairs for the Texas Rangers. He's the chairman of the board of the Arlington Convention and Visitors Bureau, and is the liaison of anything and everything that touches the Arlington area, like the IndyCar races and the FIFA World Cup. So please welcome my friend and the baseball legend that doesn't play baseball now, Rob Matwick with the Rangers. Rob, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. One of my favorite people. And of course, you're going to be speaking at the HEB Chamber of Commerce on June 14th at that luncheon. And you always draw such a great crowd and have such wonderful insights. Share with us, you're 1 down and 9 to go on major events. You had the IndyCar. Now you got 9 FIFA World Cups coming up. How do you balance everything?
Well, not just me, certainly. I'm surrounded by great people here in the Rangers organization, city of Arlington, our neighbors next door with the Cowboys. I mean, it takes a village, as we say. And when you bring in events of this magnitude, certainly IndyCar as a first-time event, but FIFA is literally a global event. It takes everybody pulling in the same direction. So it's been a pretty fascinating process on the FIFA side of things. We started more than 2 years ago with planning and trying to figure out what needed to get done before we got to this point. And now we sit here, less than 3 weeks away from this getting started, and pretty exciting time to say the least.
What are the takeaways from the IndyCar race? You have 2 more editions of it coming up the next couple of years.
Yes, we've already announced the dates for next year. I think the biggest thing for this year for next year, year 2, is trying to grow it. There was a lot of prep work that had to be done. And the city of Arlington did an amazing job with street modifications, median removals. There were crosswalks that needed to be replaced. So there was about $7 million worth of work that had to be done in year one to prepare the course. So as we go into year two, a lot of that work is actually in place and done now. We've actually got the materials that we use to create the course that are still being stored literally right outside my window down on Division Street in a lot that we own there, ready to go for next year. So I think the objective in year two is going to be to try to grow the event. We had over 90, I believe it's over 94,000 people over the 3 days. There's more than 44,000 people for race day on the Sunday. So we'll try to see if we can get, I think we'd like to see more growth in the out of town market. We probably had about 25% of the fans that came in for this year's event would characterize as visitors, someone that traveled more than 50 miles to get here. But most of those are from Texas. So now that we've had a successful event, we'll try to see if we can grow that regionally, nationally, and then hopefully, you get some international people who are interested in IndyCar races and street races. So I think that's the objective now, is to try in these first 3 years to get established and to watch it grow.
We hear that every FIFA World Cup match is equal to a Super Bowl. So give us some surprising facts that we don't know about.
Well, I don't know if I have a lot of surprising things other than I touched on it a second ago. Just the amount of effort that has gone into the planning here has been amazing. Super Bowl, you sort of plan, I think, maybe a year out. But this has been more than 2 years that we've been in discussions from the city standpoint. And I've been engaged representing the Rangers, but, sidewalk segments that were missing. They replaced street lights, street signs. There are 20 kiosks spread throughout the entertainment district that can talk to you in multiple languages. I mean, there are a lot of things that have been done to get ready for these 9 matches. The upside is for us and the Cowboys and the people at Lowe's and Texas Live and everybody who comes to the entertainment district, these improvements will stay with us now for generations to come. So it's an initial investment that's taken 2 years to complete, and it's actually not quite done yet. It's I drive in on Division Street in the mornings and I see that there's still some sidewalk. The last sections, phase 3, as we call it, of sidewalk segments are being done there from 360 over to Stadium Drive. But you can see each day as you go by how much progress the workers have made toward, giving our guests a safe place to walk if they're choosing that path to get to the entertainment district and to AT&T Stadium. So just the amount of work that's gone into the behind the scenes has been remarkable. And then things like that we hadn't even anticipated. Trinity Metro reached out to us. They're chartering 40 motor coaches to support the 9 FIFA match days. But they said, hey, on these non-match days, we've got these buses that are already here and available to us. What would you think if we ran a shuttle service between Arlington and the stockyards? So Trinity Metro has actually created routing, and they're not going to be able to transport. So if you got a guest staying in the stockyards, non-FIFA match day wants to come to a Rangers game, they'll provide a bus. I think it's going to be $9 for the trip, and it'll bring you directly over to the entertainment district. You can go to the game. You can spend time here, back on the bus. They'll take you back to the stockyards, and vice versa. We've got international fans, for example, that might be here for a match staying at the Lowe's Hotel. They can get on a bus right around the corner, take it over to the stockyards, spend the day exploring Fort Worth. The bus will bring you back in your hotel. So that was something we hadn't anticipated. And that will be on the non-match day. So, for those days in between, it'd be a great way to bring people to Arlington, have people staying in Arlington to go over and visit Fort Worth. So again, one of those regional initiatives that Trinity Metro reached out and said, would you guys be willing to support us on this? And the more we talked through it and thought about it, we said, absolutely. And it benefits our guests at the end of the day.
What a brilliant move that Trinity Metro came up with. Is it true that about 10,000 Dutch fans are going to be creating a parade to the stadium before the Netherlands game with Japan?
That's our understanding. And I know they have their bus, which I think arrived in the United States about a week or 10 days ago. I saw an image of it. I'm not sure where it landed, but they have this double-decker bus that apparently is part of the march. We've been talking to them I believe the last I heard, they were going to assemble around Mark Holt's Lake over on sort of the north side of Choctaw Stadium. So I think that's where everybody will sort of gather. And then they've been working with Arlington PD on a route that will then lead over to the stadium for the match. So I'll be curious to see. I've got some friends that are actually from the Netherlands. Bob Heer, the professor at the University of North Texas, runs the sports management program up there, has been warning us about this invasion of the Dutch fans. So I'm looking forward to seeing all that orange and watching the march as it proceeds over to the stadium for the Japan game. And I think, basically we just had the Japan US or Japan Texas Economic Summit here in early May. So I'll be curious to see how many Japanese fans will also be here for that match. So I think it's a great way to start. And, I'm excited. A lot of people were talking about the England-Croatia match as two of the top 10 or I think England is maybe third and Croatia is somewhere around 10 or 11 in terms of the way the teams are ranked. So as a second match here, a lot of people are talking about that one as potentially being one of the best matches that's out there in the pool play. So really excited about that one too. And, having the fans from England here. So that'll be really cool.
Well, you have entire ambassador villages for each nation with the team in the World Cup, complete with translators. What's that going to be like?
Well, the CBB took the lead on that. Brent Durrott and his team had seen it work successfully in a previous World Cup. So we're working with the folks over at Spark in Choctaw Stadium. The CBB has acquired space there. We've actually hired a lady who had previous diplomatic experience, had retired from the diplomatic world, but she is actually going to run the area for the various countries as they come in and visit. What's been interesting is that we have the known countries that will be here for the matches we're aware of, but when we get into those knockout stages, we don't know what countries will be here. So we've had a number of other ambassador offices that have wanted to visit Arlington to see the ambassadors row here, anticipating that their team could potentially play here. So it's not just limited to those we know at this point, but it's been much broader, and there's been tremendous interest in taking advantage of what the CBB's created there. So really excited to have it. Things happen when you get a major international event. Somebody loses a passport, anything that could happen that would require assistance from, someone's government. I think it's just a brilliant idea to be able to provide those people space where they can work and, help somebody if they get stuck here with an issue while they're in the U.S. So really excited to see how that goes, and the early feedback's been fantastic.
I read that there's a need for 6,500 volunteers. Are you all filled up, or are you all still taking applications?
Good question. I would encourage anybody to go on the FIFA website. I think the North Texas Host Committee, led by Monica Paul and her team, at the Dallas Sports Commission. I think you could probably get more information there. I would imagine, I know that we have some training days coming up because we're supporting that initiative, providing some parking for the volunteers that are coming over. So I know they're deep into it, especially this close to the matches and the FanFest. So, but I would check it out and see. I would go to that host committee website and see if they're still taking applications. But I've got to believe they're pretty close. This close to the first matches, I have to think they're pretty close to at least having that training underway. But you've got that FanFest that'll be going pretty much every day, and I'm sure there will be a big need for the events and activities taking place over in Fair Park in Dallas, because that's pretty much continuous every day of the tournament.
We live in Arlington, so what do we need to know about accessibility and about access to our favorite restaurants?
That's a good question. I've been telling people, 90,000 people or 90,000 people or 100,000, whatever they're able to get into the building. So to me, I think it'll be very similar to what we experience on Cowboys game days when you have those large, or think of it maybe as a Taylor Swift concert day, that type of activity, people coming early, they want to be here for the experience. I don't know that we'll have the tailgating. In fact, I don't think they're going to permit tailgating around the stadium footprint per se. So that'll be a little different than a Cowboy game day. But to your point, for people who want to come early, get something to eat, and then go to the match or post match, I'm envisioning in my mind that it would be similar, like I say, to a Cowboys game day, or maybe even those days where we have Cowboys Rangers conflicts to where you've got, 90,000 people next door and 30,000 people here, and we're all sort of in this central entertainment district with 120,000 people where it's going to be packed. Now, will that impact downtown? Well, sure. We want people to go there and experience downtown Arlington. We want them to go to the Highlands. We want them, but for the restaurants that are closest to the stadium, and when I say close, I include downtown in that proximity. I would expect it to be busy, but I also know from what I've heard that I think an hour, maybe 2 hours before match, as soon as the gates open, I think these fans are so passionate they're going to want to be in their seats. They're going to want to take in every minute of it in the stadium. So I think there will be a window there, probably maybe an hour before, an hour after, where it might be a little quiet. But I expect a lot more activity on either side of that.
So where does the Arlington, Fort Worth, Dallas area stand as a potential site for the Olympics moving into the future?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it's been interesting to see how they're handling even the LA Olympics, where there are some things in Oklahoma and other parts of the country. I think when you look at our region and certainly the Metroplex in and of itself, but if you were to look at, say, the Texas Triangle, I mean, if you look at the Metroplex, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, if you go up to Oklahoma City, I mean, depending on how, and I assume, obviously, we're talking Summer Olympics here, uh, I think it would be a great host for the Olympics. I think the question is, do we have the existing facilities in place, or do we have to go build facilities to support it? So, I think if you look at Texas as a whole, I mean, you could probably, like I say, in the triangle, you probably have enough capacity to maybe host all the events, just like they did in Italy for the Winter Olympics this year, where they're in multiple locations around the country. So, if that's becoming the norm now, where maybe the facilities are a little more spread out than just concentrated in one specific city, I think Texas as a state could make a really interesting option for a future Summer Olympics. So interesting question. Now, of course, we're going to be in LA in 28, so I'm sure we'll probably move around for a few years after that before we come back to the US. But I could see us putting together a pretty strong bid.
So that may be more like 2040 or 2036 at the earliest, but hopefully maybe 2040 or something like that. So you wear a lot of hats for the Rangers and the Arlington community, from Executive Vice President of Public Affairs to chairing the board of the Arlington CVB. So tell us how you manage all those. I know you've talked about it being a team, but that's a lot of hats for one person to wear.
It is. Fortunately, the meetings are sort of staggered between the Chamber of Commerce and the CVB, and I'm on the Education Foundation board. It seems like we have a pretty good rhythm. Education Foundation is usually on Tuesday, CVB usually meets on a Wednesday, Chambers on a Thursday. So those all work pretty well. I sort of dipped my toe in adjunct teaching this year. So that was a commitment at the University of North Texas in their sports management program. So that was every Thursday morning in Frisco, actually, where a lot of the sports management programs are housed at the facility they have in Frisco. So a lot of prep for class, lectures every week or guest speakers, and then grading and some other things that I didn't have any experience with previously. But part of it was me wanting to challenge myself a little bit too, and try to just see how it would go. I have to say the kids are fantastic. I had 30 students in my class. 26 of the 30 were seniors. And as some other professors told me prior to starting class, they said, listen, they're going to listen to everything you say because you're in the business, and they all want to work in the business. We, on the other hand, are professors. We're more classroom people, and we teach from textbooks and those kind of things. We have some exposure to the business, but we're not in it. And that piece sort of proved to be true. And I told my kids at the end, I said, listen, anything I could do to help you along your journey, please let me know. And I probably had, 6 or 8 of the kids have reached out directly, wanting to stay in touch. And some others have just connected on LinkedIn. So I think they've got me at arm's length right now, but I'm there if they have an opportunity or need a reference or something like that. So it was a really cool experience. That one was interesting because it took a lot of time in terms of prep and creating tests and grading grading projects and all those things. So when you talk about that balance, I say it's easy going to a CVB meeting or a chamber meeting, if you're not running it. But the adjunct teaching was interesting. They've asked me to do it again next spring. I told them I wanted to take a little bit of time to think about it. Not sure if I will yet. A lot of it will depend on what's going on with my Rangers role, and part of that may depend on what's going on with baseball by next spring. So we'll see where it goes. But I'm glad I did it, and the connection with the students was fantastic.
I had a similar opportunity. I was an adjunct professor for Baylor down in Waco and was doing media programming. And 2 days before the class started, Princess Diana died in the car wreck. And so I went in day one. I said, okay, everything's changed. I said, the media programming is totally different. You watch what happens right now. It'll be nonstop features about her life. And it was. So it was very, truly real life,
Yeah,
dynamic changes. And it was a real interesting experience. It became a very learning experience for me as well as a teaching experience.
yeah.
Uh, give us some good news about the Rangers. The season's still pretty young.
It is young, and I think the best thing is we're in a division that's still winnable at this point. So no one has run away from anyone, even though we've struggled here recently in this middle part of May, mid to late part. I think that the potential upside for us is just, getting Wyatt Langford back, getting Corey Seager back on the field. Josh Smith is probably going to be down a little bit longer with that meningitis scare he had, but hopefully he comes back maybe for the second half of the year and is ready to go. Josh Young's having a great year. Nemo's having a great year. Berger has started to drive the ball and drive and run. So I think the big thing is we just need to get them all on the same field at the same time and healthy. And as I mentioned, the good news is that, we're still sitting there within, reach of the division. And our league doesn't appear to be overly strong. I mean, you got Cleveland, New York, and Tampa Bay that are playing really well at this stage, but they'll hit rough stretches as we go through the year. So we just got to get the bats going. I feel good about the pitching. I think Jack Leiter has really taken a step, even though his record may not show it at this point. He's pitching really well. He's pitching deeper into games. Rocker, same way. Kumar has really shown flashes of what we expect he can be. So I think rotation and the bullpen, which I think there are a lot of question marks on early in the year, has really, shown that it can be very effective for us. So credit to CY and the team, for putting together a really strong pitching staff. We just got to get the offense going and probably tighten up some things on the defensive side too. But I think part of that's just been the inconsistency with our lineup. We're having to move guys around, and when you put guys out of position, sometimes it can, create some challenges. But that said, we're not even to the end of May yet, so we got plenty of baseball to go. And as we saw in 2023, we ended up as a wild card team, but we got hot at the right time in October and ran through the postseason. So that's really what you hope for. You just want to stay close till September, and then try to put yourself in at the end. And then once you get in, anything can happen over those 3.5 weeks in October.
Speaking of baseball, you've got the Savannah Bananas coming for 3 sold-out games in late September. Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, that's well, the phenomenon as well as anyone. We've talked about it a lot. It's just remarkable to see them. I think at A&M, I think they just played Neyland Stadium at University of Tennessee in front of 101,000 fans. As you mentioned, we're sold out for 3 straight nights. So you're going to have 40,000 plus for 3 consecutive nights. So there's another 120,000 people that they'll play in front of. It's just remarkable. I mean, what Jesse Cole's done and the young people that he has gotten engaged and the way they go about their business. I mean, there's so much joy and so much passion when you watch a Bananas game that it's infectious. I mean, fans love it. They buy into it. And, it's just a cool experience, but it's, there's some people I think early on that maybe felt like it was disrespectful to the game, if you will. But in my mind, the beauty of it is it's still baseball. Is it unique? Is it a little different? Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, they're out there to have fun. I think Jesse would tell you that. I'm sure he's told you that personally, that, at the end of the day, we're out there to entertain our fans and make it a great experience. And we're in the business of making memories. That's what we do. And I think the Bananas have done that as well as anybody that I've ever seen. So credit to Jesse Cole and his team. They've taken it to the next level.
They did the coolest thing before the A&M game. They actually did a pop-up game at Navasota High School, totally unannounced. Free game, free tickets. 1,000 people showed up, totally off social media. I mean, and they'd been planning on that for years, not to be there, but wanting to do it somewhere.
Somewhere.
And and that's just the dynamic. Okay, we can't end this broadcast without a Nolan Ryan story. So give us something that gives us an insight to the man, the legend.
I don't know if it's a great Nolan Ryan story, but I learned some lessons from Nolan, and one of the ones that's always resonated with me has been his genuine humility. And even after all he accomplished in his career, early in my tenure here with the Rangers back in 2008, Nolan, Jim Sundberg, and myself were going to lunch one day. And you might remember back when it was open, Bodacious Barbecue right down the street here on Division, over by the Candlelight Inn, as a matter of fact. So we decided, let's run down to Bodacious, really laid back. We'll hop in there, have some barbecue and chat over lunch and go about our day. So we get down there, and like everybody else, we go through the line, and when we pulled in, I noticed there were a couple of utility trucks out in the parking lot. And sure enough, as we're going through the line, I see these guys over there having their lunch and everything, and they're doing, their heads are on a swivel. They can't believe that Nolan Ryan's going through the same line that they went through a few minutes earlier. So we get our food and we go over, we sit down at the table, and we're sitting there chatting for a few minutes and enjoying lunch. And these guys were finishing up and get ready to leave. And as you would imagine, right? You have that opportunity, you're that close to Nolan Ryan. These guys stopped over at the table and sort of sheepish about it, but asked him to sign, I don't know what they had, a napkin or whatever. I think he may have taken a picture with the guys too. And, no big deal, right? They go on about their day. We sit there, finish our meal. We got back in the car, and I looked at Nolan. I said, Nolan, does that ever get tired? I mean, does it ever get old? And he looked at me, he said, you know what, Rob? He said, it's just part of it. And, I thought, wow, it's not not that it's that insightful, but, he just sort of who he was and who he continues to be to this day. I've seen him in other situations with restaurant servers and bellman at hotels and stuff like that. And he's always thoughtful, always goes out of his way to take care of people. And Chuck Morgan tells a great story too about some of those nights when he would be, I think Marty Robbins, as he tells the story, he was with Marty one night, and after a show at the Grand Ole Opry, Marty stood, he was at the place for an hour after that, signing autographs, taking pictures, just talking to his fans. When they got done, Chuck asked him, he said, Marty, why'd you do all that, man? You don't need to spend all that time hanging around. He said, listen, Chuck, those people put food on my table. They came here tonight to hear me put on a show and sing my music and play my music, and they hung around afterward to talk to me. And, I appreciate that. And Nolan has that same kind of genuine humility. He's never lost that human touch, which, to me says a lot about, the character of the person. And I've never forgotten that. And for some reason, it's just always stayed with me that day. There's just three utility guys, and, is there one brush with greatness? And Nolan made sure that, it was everything that they would hope that it would have been. And it would have been easy for him to just have dismissed it, but he never did. And I never saw him do that. I tell you, the only other time I think I caught him off his heels was the morning after the sale of the Rangers took place, when Mr. Hicks sold the franchise to Mr. Davis and Mr. Simpson. They were at the courthouse that night. You might remember the bankruptcy judge. I mean, that thing went on till almost midnight that night. Well, he was coming in the next morning, and we had planned as a staff, obviously unbeknownst to him, that we would gather up in the reception area up on the fourth floor. So we could see out the window when he parked his car. He was walking across the street, so he knew he was on the elevator. We probably had 60 or 70 people gathered up there. And Tawny Taylor asked me if I would present Nolan with a bottle of champagne on behalf of the organization, which I was honored to do. Anyway, I've never seen Nolan taken aback. I mean, he's one of those guys that's always ready. He always knows what's going to happen next. And sure enough, when those elevator doors opened and he saw us, And I got to be the guy standing there with a bottle of champagne and somebody snapped the picture. I think it's the only time in my life I'd ever seen Nolan literally back on his heels. He was just sort of blown away. We all were by that moment. But we were so thrilled to have come through the night and had a great outcome. And he was genuinely appreciative, touched by it, moved by it. But I think it's the only time I think I've ever seen him where he literally looked like he like he was startled.
Wow. Well, and our guest today has been Rob Matwick, the Executive Vice President of Public Affairs for the Texas Rangers. Rob, thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you keynote the June 14th luncheon for the HEB Chamber. That's going to be on Thursday, the 14th. So we'll see you then.
All right, so let's look forward to it. Thank you.